Welcome, low ego action heroes. This is Debbie Levitt from Delta CX. Thanks for joining us today for episode 235 on Generic Book X. And I wrote this article when I was thinking about how many times we hear about a new technique or a system or a methodology, and it's basically the previous system or methodology mildly changed, new template, lots of trademark symbols, new names for things, but oh my God, it's just the same thing over and over again. I'm hoping you can hear me okay. I'm trying a different microphone, so let me know if you can't hear me very well or if I need to be louder or softer. I also didn't bring my fancy camera with me, so this is my Surface Pro camera. I know it's a little bit laggy, but as long as the audio is good, we'll be fine. So I don't have my usual filters and lighting, so apologies for the stark reality. And thanks, as always, to all of our Patreon members, both free and paid. You can join our Patreon even at the free level at patreon.com/CXCC. And people who are paying get a few more perks, but even people who are not will get some early access to stuff and some special discounts. So come on over. And let's see, I'm not seeing any what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not seeing any comments today, so I'm wondering if my comments thing is just dead or if people haven't tuned in yet. Give me 1 second to try to check. Let's see. All is clear. Hello. Okay, great. So let me know if you have any sense of what I normally sound like. Tell me if this microphone is better or worse. Otherwise, we'll just run with that. So I'm going to be reading you my Generic Book X article, and I would love for you to comment or ask questions or agree or disagree or challenge me as I go, because I want to hear what people have to say about this one. Okay, let me get it queued up, and then we'll do my screen sharing, which I know everyone is going to love how that looks. Looks like this. You. All right, so we have the chat room on the side, and we have the article over here, and me in the corner in my hotel room. So, again, apologies that I'm not on my usual equipment. So, this is an article that you can find on Medium and on my LinkedIn newsletter, and it's called The Continuous Discovery Habits of Inspired Lean Startups and Lean UX Sprints. You can probably guess what that represents, and I call it Generic Book X, but let's talk about it. In the last 12 or so years, a number of books have become huge successes in the business and technology worlds. These books include The Lean Startup by Eric Ries, Sprint by Jake Knapp, Lean UX by Jeff Gotthelf, Continuous Discovery Habits by Teresa Torres, and a couple of books by Marty Kagan, hence the article's silly title combining these. I've been reflecting on how each new book appears to just be a rewording of someone else's previous book. The new author takes someone else's model or technique, they create a slight variation or derivative, give it a fresh name in initial caps, and a trademark symbol. These books are so similar that I want to refer to all of them as Generic Book X. Each author starts by jumping on the bandwagon of the previous book's popularity. Who wouldn't want to jump on the popularity of a current book, create their own surprisingly close derivative, and make that sweet, sweet book speaking and training money? Due to the turnover in tech jobs, each new Generic Book X seemed like something really new and fresh to the new and fresh tech workers. The more veteran workers ignored each new Generic Book X, having heard it many times before. Many veteran tech workers gave up fighting these books and their methods. Some didn't bother speaking up against the books or leaving bad reviews on the assumption that who would ever use such a flawed and bad method? At least that's what many people have told me when I asked why they didn't leave a bad review for a book they hated. We know now that even a book with a really poor method can become popular, so we must be unafraid to leave that book a review matching what we thought of it, whatever that is. A new generic book X wins audiences every few years while repackaging what the previous generic book X said. This helps companies imagine that they're doing things right. Look at all of these books saying this is the way to do it, and we're doing it this way. We must be getting it right. For example, quote, be careful, however. Sometimes when we embed user researchers on product teams, it can be easy for the team to let the user researcher do all the research on their own. We don't want this. End quote. Teresa Torres in a 2021 blog post. And, quote, making sense of UX research can be time consuming and frustrating, so the process is often handed over to specialists who are asked to synthesize research findings. You shouldn't do this. End quote. Lean UX Book, second edition from 2016. Generic Book X rides on the coattails of the previous Generic Book X, saying many of the same things. If they sold well when Lean UX said them and led to lucrative training and engagements, then when someone repackages or repeats them, they too might sell well and make some sweet training money. The writing style is even similar. It's a warning that you might do the logical, fair, friendly, good teammates thing and let a specialist do their specialized work. But you shouldn't, in a short, imperative sentence. You might think that we opened a researcher job and we spent weeks interviewing people, so it must be important that these specialists are here. You might have wanted to let them do their jobs, maybe even by themselves, just like product managers do their jobs by themselves. But no, you don't want that, and you shouldn't do that. Bad dog. We pretend that we don't want this, but surely nobody asked researchers what they want. They didn't want to be disempowered. They didn't want to be blocked from their work by product managers or the team. They wanted to be empowered and supported. It sounds like the we is a very select we who is enjoying power over other teammates. When companies don't really want to change, evolve, or innovate, it's easy to be complacent with our methods. And we'll happily feed that confirmation bias with more books putting new names on the same way we're doing things now. New names help us feel like we're trying new things, but Generic Book X sold you derivatives and variations of what you're doing now. If it was easy to go from how generic book X said to do things to how a later generic book X said to do things, you probably didn't have a transformation. You're probably doing the same things the same ways as fast as possible and filling out new templates and maps that are just variations of the old ones. Amazingly, books telling us we can be innovative and create new and exciting solutions rarely, if ever, have innovative methods. But that's on purpose. If we offer something too radical or different, companies might not adopt it. Companies would rather hear what they want to hear, and the authors of Generic Book X are happy to feed that. Generic Book X has subtle and non subtle content on how we need to be fast. We've been hearing that we need to be fast for so many years that we don't remember why we need to be fast. But we know that fast is absolutely the most important thing our company can be. It's even more important than being good. It might have started with Lean Startup and books that made us want to be like cool startups, moving fast, trying another idea, and showing enough vanity metrics so that we get investment. We thought we had to be first to market, even though companies we often admire, like Apple, are rarely first to market. Generic Book X tells us that we need to go fast, which usually means recommendations or an entire model revolving around running with assumptions. Just run with this idea and you'll figure out later if it worked or not. We were supposed to be delivering value to users and customers. That was supposed to be at the core of Agile and Lean. But that message became increasingly quieter when companies saw how fast they could try to churn out something, anything. Companies want to measure people by deadlines. Or how many features did we release in a certain amount of time, regardless of quality, value, or success? They even want to measure UX research, a completely quality based job with quality based tasks on how many insights we found. We say outcomes over outputs, but if we really measured outcomes, the value we delivered, or the customer experience, we'd have to face some demons. And if we saw some demons, someone might want to hold someone accountable. If we had accountability, someone might have to examine and question our methods. Generic Book X gets a bit hand wavy and non-specific when it's time to talk about metrics, quality, and failures. The advice tends to be iterate and try again. Yet we so rarely understand why we failed, where we went wrong, which assumption or guess bit us in the ass later. We assume that our solution must be close. So let's burn more time and money on small changes to see if that moves the business needle. Since we want to be fast, Generic Book X makes great product and customer satisfaction seem easy. Just fill out these templates or do this workshop. The key to products customers will love is in this cool canvas. Just map opportunities to achieve business goals, and you'll surely create great product for customers. Fill in the blanks on this wheel, and you will create a value proposition customers will love. Guess at what people think and feel, and we've surely experienced and mapped empathy. Sure, we borrowed and renamed this business model canvas, and you're not trying to create a business model, but you can use it to create lean solutions. Just write down what the business wants to achieve, how it'll do that, and how much customers will need our feature idea. And wow, innovation! Our template has users and customers on it somewhere. They're included somewhere towards the end of this exercise, but we have empathy for them. And boom, amazing products and services. Customers will be thrilled. Teams are inspired and empowered. Generic Book X says it is so. Generic Book X whistles at customer satisfaction or delight. They whistle at how talking to customers and users will help us know what to create or build. Generic Book X will tell you how you need to delight your users and really create great products and services. Fulfill your brand promise and beat the competition to innovative products and services that will make customers score you 9 or 10 on that NPS survey. Generic Book X tells you you'll need to have empathy or build empathy. You need to care about customers. The techniques in Generic Book X then get a little fuzzy. We have lots of templates to fill out and maps to draw, yet all of these seem to start with business goals or what metrics the business needs to see. We're unlikely to delight customers when they are barely in the conversation or only in the conversation as the pawn will push around to achieve the business goals. Sometimes Generic Book X details how to reverse engineer user needs to explain why building the features we want to build will somehow be good for our users. We don't start with user needs or real problems and then consider the best solutions. We start with features and try to figure out who will want these, what they'll pay for them, and if we can rationalize why our idea might work. Generic Book X promotes feature factories while claiming to be against the feature factory. Generic Book X claims to be user focused while putting business goals, stakeholder whims, and what'll get leadership promoted first. We're idea first, hypothesis first, product first, and product led, while customers and users are mostly there to be pushed into helping the business achieve its goals until the users leave. Generic Book X doesn't really handle what to do when you are bleeding customers. Maybe you didn't get out of the building enough. Maybe you didn't call the right people to ask what our product is missing. Maybe you need to create another focus group to learn is everybody if every if everybody is having the problems you think they're having. Or maybe we don't care if we're bleeding customers. Get your sales team working on winning more new customers. These books whistle at the importance of research, especially early research. Generic Book X tells you how to do research, who should do research, who shouldn't do research, how little research we can do since we need to be fast. Yet none of these books was written by a professional CX or UX researcher. If I had written a book about the best ways to code or how we should do DevOps engineering, I'd be laughed off the planet since I've never had a career in either of those. Yet so many people seem comfy taking how to research advice from authors who were never professional or career researchers. Generic Book X rarely suggests that research be done by qualified researchers. Research is treated as something that anybody can do, regardless of education, skill, experience, technique, or quality. And we can get away with this since Generic Book X offers no model for accountability or governing the quality of this research work. The work just needs to be done, and higher standards for quality will slow us down. Without standards, any research is evidently good enough. And Generic Book X ignores that we might be setting ourselves up for risk and failure due to flawed research and bad data. Generic Book X proclaims that utilizing real researchers would be slow and expensive, while having non researchers do research is somehow much faster and cheaper. And that's linked to an article I wrote about that, showing it's actually slower and more expensive. If you have a professional qualified researcher, Generic Book X usually requires them to mostly or only coach, advise, or teach. Don't let them do the research. Research is for the whole team or just the product manager. Generic Book X tells you to make sure you're going out and talking to some users. Get out of the building. Pick up the phone to talk to at least a few customers each week to find out their pain points and problems. Just send out a survey. Just call a few people and see what they think the product needs. Better yet, find the people who have the problem we think they have so we can prove that people have the problem we think they have. A professional researcher wouldn't call that good research, but Generic Book X says it's the way to go. Some books treat researching users as something we do in service of figuring out how to achieve business goals. We wonder what we can sell people or how to make people do more of what the business wants them to do. Generic Book X does not want anyone to be held accountable. Generic Book X doesn't want anybody in trouble, on a performance improvement plan, demoted, fired, laid off, transferred, or having their budget cut because of bad decisions. Generic Book X is afraid of what our work, products, services, and outcomes would look like if there were real accountability. Generic Book X teaches you that failure is great. Fail fast, fail often, and dare to fail. We pretend that failure is a great way to learn, but it shouldn't be the first time we learn or the only way we learn. And too often we fail without really understanding why we failed. We went into that product, service, feature, or experiment with high confidence. We probably didn't care that much about the outcome for users, but we had high confidence that our idea would work well to achieve our business goals. It failed in small or large ways, and we don't know why. Generic Book X doesn't recommend stopping and figuring out why we failed. Don't bother looking for root causes. Just come up with another variation or idea and try again. Ideate and experiment. Try another variation. Keep cycling around through guesses until business numbers look a little better. But don't you dare think critically. Generic Book X might inspire you to draw some trees, maps, or fill in some canvases and templates, but Generic Book X does not want you to think critically about any of this. Generic Book X does not want you to question its content, models, or methods. The author of Generic Book X needs you to not notice that it's the same stuff as the last book with a fresh new name and a slightly revised template. Generic Book X and all of its trademark symbols might make you think that this is the great new method, but it's the same methods we've been hearing about for the last 15 years. Generic Book X's author hopes to be forever employable and make endless money from selling you training, webinars, and workshops on how to do their models. How to make things faster, pretend we're empowering workers or users. So much empathy. It's just the same old message. How to innovate fast and delight users, while usually doing no innovation, working slowly and in wasteful cycles of guesses, and without user delight. In a few years, we'll have another generic book X that tells us how to do the same things we're doing now but faster. It'll tell you how many jobs at your company can be reduced or cut because AI can do those jobs well enough. Someone on LinkedIn recently told me that AI in 2024 can absolutely do all of service design. I disagree. Even if AI could do it, it's unlikely to do it well, and I care about the quality of work and its outcomes. But while companies believe that complicated and strategic work like service design can be done by AI, you can be sure that the next generic book X will suggest maximum speed with maximum work done by robots and automation. The antidote to generic book X. May I please suggest my book, Customers Know You Suck? It's a strategic and tactical book aimed at creating change and taking action. It pushes against almost everything all the other generic book X authors have been borrowing from each other. That might seem like a shameless plug, but I offer the book for free as well as paid versions. Feel free to consume it for $0. It's not about the money. It's about empowering teams and companies to break out of the same old advice that every few years gets a new name and a trademark symbol. And that is the article. Let's see. Oh, my comments are a little funky, but Marjolaine says, the problem lies in the authors not being practitioners or having practiced UX research as a researcher, but they say how researchers need to work, and product managers, or the highest paid person, says how UX researchers have to work, deciding which method to apply without even having a question or a problem. I heard UX researchers being asked to do continuous discovery or do generative research in the time span of quant data collection. Absolutely agree. It's just all of these books are just copying each other. All of these books say what the last book. How long has my mic been muted? Sorry, did you hear me reading what Marjolaine said? Looks like my mic was muted. Yeah, no audio. Sorry about that. Let me roll back a little bit and read what Marjolaine said. And yeah, 30 seconds of no audio. Sorry about that. That was my mistake. I'm on my travel computer and I hit the wrong button. So, Marjolaine was saying the problem lies in the authors not being practitioners or having practiced UX research as a researcher, but they say how researchers need to work, and product managers or hippos say how UX researchers have to work, deciding which method to apply without even having a question or a problem. I heard researchers being asked to do continuous discovery or do generative research in the time span of quant data collection. So yes, I was saying thank you for that great comment. Absolutely true. And again, remember that all of these books are not written by experts in these areas. I have not yet seen a book on how to do these things written by someone who's actually had a job or career in research other than me. Maybe other than the UX strategy book, which I haven't read but heard good things about. But as for a largely successful business book, all of these people are engineers. A couple of them are product managers. Some of them were engineers and woke up one day and were product managers. Isn't that interesting? But interestingly, none of them were researchers and none of them were designers. When I look through these people's backgrounds on LinkedIn, sometimes I don't see a UX job at all. So I don't know why these people are telling us how to do UX. And in some cases, the last UX job they had was 2012, or a certain author I won't name, their last UX job was in 1999. I think you've been a little out of touch, and you're not someone I want to take advice on how to do research or design. You're not doing it. You haven't been in the work for decades. And I also wanted to mention, when my microphone was not working, that we see this outside of these books. Sure, we can say that continuous discovery habits look like it picked up where lean UX left off and almost uses parts of it word for word or vibe for vibe. And lean UX picked up where lean startup left off. So everybody's just riding on each other's coattails. But we see that outside of books because if you think about it, we had Double Diamond. And Double Diamond was just remixing and repackaging what human-centered design already was. We already had human-centered design. We didn't need it repackaged or a shape drawn to represent it. And then you had design thinking, which was trying to redo the Double Diamond. And so it's like nobody has come up with anything new or fresh. If you think about it, all of these methods are just remixes, rehashing, repackaging previous methods. And that to me is highly problematic because it means our companies are never really going to change. Our teams are never really going to change. We're never really going to have the transformation that a lot of us want. And we're certainly not going to have user centricity or customer centricity of any sort if people at the company are reading the same old book about how you just need to pretend to map users and what they want and draw a journey and then do nothing in service of them. I have so many people come to me privately who say, I work in CX or UX. A main aspect of my job is customer journey mapping. And once I map the customer journey map, I'm not allowed to do anything about it. I'm not allowed to change it. I'm not allowed to recommend changes. That's it. I map the customer journey. I pass it to someone else. They're supposed to do something and they don't. So congratulations. We can read another book on customer journey mapping or continuous discovery or whatever. These are all, I don't get it. I just don't get it. And then we have all of the people on LinkedIn who are rehashing and remixing Teresa Torres and Marty Kagan as if that needed to be remixed or rehashed. They already exist. And those people are out there saying, yeah, product managers should wireframe and product managers should have all the power on the team and product managers should own and run UX and UX work and UX people. And it's like, okay, you can all keep writing and reading the same book, but look at our results. Look at how often we're failing. So, of course, now the books say failure is great because they realized if someone ever said, we need responsibility and accountability for all of these failures, then someone would go, this isn't going very well. But now the books say do all this crap, and if you're failing, that's great. Failure is good product strategy. Failure is good product management. And of course, it's not. To me, anything that's good strategy and good work is going to succeed. Let's just, most of the time. You're not going to succeed all the time, but you can succeed most of the time. You can. So if there's any other questions or comments, please leave them now. I know we're delayed about a minute, so I'll leave a little bit of time if anybody wants to put up a comment or a challenge or a disagreement or a question. Otherwise, in a couple of minutes, we will just end our webinar with thanks again to the people joining and watching. This will be given to our paid Patreons for 2 weeks, and then it'll be on YouTube archived so that people can find it there and share it out. I want you to share it out, especially with the product managers in your world. I want them to think about the books that they've been reading and the articles they've been pressing like on and the Substacks they've been paying for that just go for the confirmation bias and tell them, keep doing what you're doing. This is the way to do it. You're great. And I say, look, it's always feels good to hear you're great and you're doing everything right. But then let's not pretend that's innovation or experimentation with our internal processes. Let's not pretend that that's continuous improvement of our internal processes. Let's not pretend it's outcomes over output, because it's really just output. So I want people to think more critically about the things they're reading and watching, and I want them to think very critically about the authors. Again, if I wrote a book about how to write code, you should throw it out the window. I've never had a programming job, so I don't know why we're listening to so many people. I won't name names, but let's just say so many people who've written books, offer training, people who write things on LinkedIn and on Substack, and they're telling you how to design, they're telling you to research. They've never held a job in design or research. Or the last time they worked in design or research was 15 years ago, 20 years ago. It doesn't make sense. So with that, and not seeing any other questions come in, thanks for putting up with my wacky lighting. Maybe I'll try turning it down a little. Hello from a hotel room. I'll be out of town another 2 weeks, so you'll have to deal with travel computer and some weird stuff, but and no filter. So there you go. And please let me know. Please write a comment about how my microphone sounds, because I just bought this on Amazon here in America, and if it sucks, I want to return it while I'm here in America. So let me know if my microphone is good, bad, or the same as the headset one I normally wear. Thanks again to everybody for joining in. And tomorrow will be office hours, Ask Us Anything with Dr. Nick. So I hope you'll join in. That will be at 2 p.m. London time. It's a little too early for some people. It'll be 6 a.m. where I am. So I'm going to get up and help everybody out who I can. Remember, you can send your question ahead of time if you want to deltacx.com/links, and we'll address those tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. Bye.